had trouble getting weapons and guns. That was a racial inequality. If you were white and walked into a gun shop and of age and had the right identification, you could probably buy a gun, no problem, and get away with it. Maybe not so much for the minority clubs. So there was a deal struck in which it was a large meeting. I mean, I was told like 5 or 6 carloads of Royals from the north side went to like something like 50th and Wentworth or something on the south side into a factory or a warehouse, and they all went inside. There were other club members from the north side, like Harrison Johns, great supposedly Crazy Horse was there. Todd Brewer from the Royals was there, and the Black Gangster Disciples were there. The meeting went on, but it also got raided. A lot of rumors since then, a lot of mythology and legend says, oh, this guy escaped or these guys escaped. I recently spoke with an older royal that was there, and he said nobody escaped. That's bullshit. They had the place surrounded. There was only 2 exits. We had no idea where we were. We're in the middle of the South Side. He said we all went to jail that day for mob action. It all got SOL'd in court, dismissed, but and it was more like a big party. When you got 50 to 100 guys all going to jail together, the paddy wagons are pulling up. You know, a lot of jokes are being talked about.
Right.
With your pants on the ground, pants on the ground, pants Pay attention when I talk it, man, these niggas all cap. You better tell them I'm too old for this rap. Pay attention to me, baby, I don't rap it, I jab. You better tell them I'm too old for this rap. Pay attention when I talk it, man, these niggas all cap. You better tell them I'm too old for this rap.
Yeah. But as you were saying though, you was breaking it down. You went from the Greasy Gangs and you started talking about Jeff Fort, and you was breaking that down. What was you saying about that?
So Jeff Fort went to prison as a Blackstone Ranger. It would have been like the 60s, I'm pretty sure. And he got smart in there. He started learning more about the government and kind of like a rich person hires an expensive tax attorney to figure out ways to get around, paying high taxes with all the loopholes. It's kind of like what he did. He thought of a way to create, rebrand the club and present them in a way that sort of was like a big loophole. He came back and called them the El Rukins, and basically had them registered as a religion, an organized religion. And that changes a lot of aspects in an organization. It at least at the very least as an official appearance and documentation.
Right.
So what happened is it got popular. There's always these democratic efforts to have programs to benefit the disenfranchised. So now this notorious gang that's known for a lot of bad shit is now a recognized religion, organized religion, and Jeff Ford as its leader, right down to where they were wearing religious garb, certain kind of hats and stuff. They looked very very different than what your typical bopper would have looked like back in the day. And
Right.
so President Nixon, who actually is a Republican, so that shows you how much the government was behind these efforts. When he became president, Jeff Fort was invited to his inaugurational party. I don't think he went. I think he sent representatives, but that's how important he became in the late 60s, early 70s. And they were given a lot of money, a lot of government granted money to improve, I don't know, either the organization, the neighborhood. I don't remember a lot of specifics. This is stuff I read in books when I was a kid, 30, 40 years ago. And to learn about that. So that kind of trajectory, it teaches you stuff and how important clubs versus the system became. Larry Hoover was the leader of the Black Gangster Disciples. he wasn't the original leader. Well, no, he was the original leader of the Black Gangster Disciples. I think he tried a similar approach, maybe to lesser effect, but I think he's still locked up.
Yeah.
Last I checked, he's still locked up, and they're always still, free Larry type of thing. But his club went into a lot of different directions too. They had different onset Black Disciple, Gangster Disciple, 360, Brothers of Struggle. Now it's G&D, Growth and Development is sort of the image they want to portray, and I don't know. I think there's always a side of legitimacy to this stuff that I think leaders and people of the community want to see these kids do better. And if gangs is the only avenue, but it will put them in a better position in life, then that might have been seen as a good thing for a while. But ultimately, the gang life shows through. I mean, a lot of that money, you figured, was used very differently than was supposed to be. Just like any typical politician today, when what are you capable of? Somebody hands you $1 million. What are you capable of doing? What are you willing to tell them to get it, to say that you're going to do for it? And then what are you really going to do with it? So when you know yourself, then you'll know other people, what they're willing to do. And that's at any level, at any age.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard of a guy named Mousey?
Yeah. Mousey was a former Simon City Royal. Well, former, he's always been a Royal. He died when he got released, but he was a big deal in the prison
that I got in Stateville. They caught these guys with 11 guns in the cell house. The guy had a sawed-off single-shot shotgun underneath his pillow, and this wasn't Bruton, some other guy. The first time I saw an Uzi was in Stateville.
System as someone pushing to reform prison conditions after he was released, but even during it, he was also always fighting for the Royals to have their seat at the table, quote unquote, which was like a table of rank, which is usually mostly Black and Hispanic club leaders. So this really gets into the whole crux of the folks and people thing and why that was created. It was the Simon City Royals in late 70s, 78, 79, 80, that met with the Black Gangster Disciples to form the Folks Alliance. And the trade-off was, I think we talked about this in my last interview a little bit. The trade-off was the Royals were having problems in prison because they were a white club, but they were united with, they were okay with Blacks and Hispanics in their club, which became a problem for protection under white clubs in prison, which was usually the norm. If you went to prison, you got protection from other white clubs. But now if you're a white club that's shown being cool, letting Blacks and Hispanics in your gang, well, now you're not going to get that same treatment of protection. Now on the outside, the Black Gangster Disciples, like many minority gangs, had trouble getting weapons and guns. That was a racial inequality. If you were white and walked into a gun shop and of age and had the right identification, you could probably buy a gun, no problem, and get away with it. Maybe not so much for the minority clubs. So there was a deal struck in which it was a large meeting. I mean, I was told like 5 or 6 carloads of Royals from the north side went to like something like 50th and Wentworth or something on the south side into a factory or a warehouse, and they all went inside. There were other club members from the north side, like Harrison Johns, supposedly Crazy Horse was there. Todd Brewer from the Royals was there, and the Black Gangster Disciples were there. The meeting went on, but it also got raided. A lot of rumors since then, a lot of mythology and legend says, oh, this guy escaped or these guys escaped. I recently spoke with an older Royal that was there, and he said nobody escaped. That's bullshit. They had the place surrounded. There was only 2 exits. We had no idea where we were. We're in the middle of the Southside. He said we all went to jail that day for mob action. It all got SOL'd in court, dismissed, but it was more like a big party. When you got 50 to 100 guys all going to jail together, the paddy wagons are pulling up. A lot of jokes are being talked about.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, can you hold on 1 second? Let's put a break on 1 second. I got to take this real quick. right, so okay,
yeah.
so yeah, it's absolute BS that anybody got away on that. They all went to jail, but the meetings were closed. The deals were struck, and that changed everything. The entire landscape. You really think about it, how important, how big the Simon City Royals, after they united. We'll tell that story in a minute, but basically, so before the Simon City Royals were the Royals, and just Simon City existed in the 50s and 60s. The Latin Kings, the largest single street gang in the entire nation, was formed because they were being bullied by the Simon City Greasers in the
Wow.
late 50s. All right, so they formed that gang. Now move up 10 years later to or 20 years later to the late 70s, and they meet with the BGDs and form what's called the Folks Alliance, which was their suggestion. The Folks name already existed in the prison system, but I was told that the Royals suggested that we call the new alliance on the outside the Folks. And so, and obviously the Black Gangster Disciples agreed, and that's how it was formed. And so in turn, the Stones, the Elrukins, the Vice Lords, and the Latin Kings united.
I don't mean to bring people name up, but he's the guy I had ran across with the Simon City Royal. They called him Batman. The
All
guy
right,
that had
so
the 25 million.
Batman is he was like I his real name is I'm trying to think of his real name. The kid that got the millions of dollars, who
Thaddeus.
sued the city. Found out he didn't do it. There was proof he didn't do it. He gets released. He sues the city. He was given like, I don't know, 25 million, 15 million, something like that. His
25
lawyer
million.
fees and everything, but he was given a lot of money and he didn't handle it well. And he shot another Royal and he did it on camera. I mean, so many stupid things there. Everything he did, he turned out Vice Lords. He went up to the West Side. He threw money at Vice Lords to get them to tattoo Royal tattoos on their forehead and flip Royal.
Yeah.
Now, we were hearing about this and we were very upset. We don't want to, beat the kid up or anything. We just wanted to talk to him and teach him that that's not the right way to do things.
Right.
That's like a sellout. You don't get people to sell out and expect loyalty. Believe me, when the shit hits the fan, regardless if there's tattoos on those guys' foreheads or not, they're not going to be there for you. They're
Right.
going to go back and join the Vice Lords. That's what they're going to do. So yeah, that was a lot of bad things he did. Then he gets out and films himself shooting somebody. It has to be the single dumbest thing. What is it with this later generations? I get that social media and video cameras and thing or something we didn't have, and we might have handled it differently too back then. But we were always smart enough not to film our own crimes, let alone even talk about them.
Right.
Once you have that, you're done. There is no argument. You're going back to jail. You're not going to win in court. You know what I mean? How stupid that was. So, yeah, we weren't too impressed with it. That was an embarrassment. We're hoping he's supposed to be released again in 3 or 4 years, if not sooner. And
Oh,
we're
damn.
hoping he does it better this time. From people I've talked to that who were a cellmate of his, they said that he's actually kind of soft spoken and kind of a cool guy. So, case of too much money, too young, and when you have your formative years growing up in prison, and then all of a sudden you get released into the streets with a lot of money. Is it anybody surprised that what happened? You know what
But
I
I
mean?
mean, the thing about it is, when it comes to this generation, attention is worth more than 25 million. You know what I'm saying? This is a attention economy. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's
I
seeking,
agree. I agree.
everybody's seeking attention. So they figure, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I probably know I can go out there and do and you know what I'm saying, make some money. But to have millions of people look at me a particular type of way is worth more than money to them, which is ass backwards. But I don't know,
Yeah. No, I
that's
hear you.
crazy.
So let's go back to let's talk about a story. I'm going to talk about how the Royals formed, and then what happened with the Popes and Royals, because this is year of the Popes now. This is 75 years. We've got this card was recently made. You got 1949 was where they started out on the near southwest side at a school called Pope Elementary on Albany, and about what would be like 1100 South Albany. And we got newspaper clips where a group of grammar school boys banded together calling themselves the Popes. And then after that, as they get older, and you could sort of trace cards and stuff going to the old neighborhood by like Chicago and Wood, and then straight down northwest on Milwaukee, you could sort of follow them over the decades from the 50s all the way up into the 90s, going up into like Jefferson Park area, Colmar Park. And then on the back here, you see these are all the parks they had. There was a leader called Larkin in the 60s and 70s of the insane popes on the northwest side. And what was different about your typical clubs is usually, even when a club has multiple sections, it has different leaders at each section.
Right.
Well, this was different. The insane popes had like 7 or 8 parks on the northwest side, and all one leader though, Larkin. It was like an empire. It was like centralized authority over a whole entire section of the city, not just a neighborhood, which is typically the case of different sections. And you could see here on the back here, if you look, I'll put it up close to the camera, North Mayfair, you got Kilbourne Park. They had Kilbourne before the Gaylords did. It's what happened. They actually got into a dispute, and the Gaylords killed Larkin after he gave Kilbourne Park to the Gaylords. They killed Larkin, and that year, 1975, when it happened, the Royals, who were cool with all the white gangs, sided with the Popes, because the year before they had lost their leader Arab in 74. And so they sided with the Popes, and that became RPN. And that model survived, whereas the Gaylords, with all their white clubs they were united with, called UFO, United Five organization, that included the Playboys and other clubs, Jousters, and a couple others. Right. They had more of a WPO model that pretty much died out by the 80s and 90s. And that whole white power, first thing really didn't sell to the new generations coming up. If you were white, you wanted to join the gang that was cool with blacks and Hispanics, because that was a smarter way to go. And that would have been the Royals. So, all right, so now we'll go back into the Simon City guys. So these would have been the leaders, some of the leaders. This card here shows these 3 guys all came up about the same time. They're all about the same age. And in the 60s, they were teenagers, and they all were getting in trouble as Simon City guys, Simon City greasers. So they're all in court about the age of 17, and the judge is about to send them away. but the option was, or you can join the army and go fight in the Vietnam War. And that's what all three of these guys did. Okay. And one of them, the one on the bottom, was one of the main leaders of Simon City. He died in Vietnam. The other two came back. The one is on the far, your right, my left, is Rashid Zayed. That would be Arab. That would be the guy that founded the Simon City Royals. He would come back in 1969, and his family moved from North Avenue over to Lakeview, where a gang called the Ashland Royals out of Lakeview High School had existed for 1 year and had lost their leader to graduation and marriage. And so these guys came along. The family moved to the area. He gets back out of the army from Vietnam War and says that he wants to get the gang back together. And a lot of the old Simon City guys from North Avenue were older and weren't interested, but these new Royals here were. And so they agreed to unite and form a club called the Simon City Royals in 1969. And that's how the club came to be.